¿Cómo está? Bienvenido a la jugada crítica de Telesur. Sorprendida está la administración estadounidense en pleno año electoral por la rectificación que recién hiciera La Haya. Tras haberse negado, el organismo judicial decide ahora darle luz verde a una investigación sobre presuntos crímenes de guerra de Estados Unidos en Afganistán. ¿Qué contexto envuelve esta noticia? ¿Por qué reacciona la Casa Blanca arremetiendo contra la institucionalidad de la Corte Penal Internacional? ¿Cuánto hay en juego? Desplegamos el tablero, inicia la jugada. Escuchemos declaraciones del secretario de Estado Mike Pompeo tras la decisión de la Corte Penal Internacional. También la máxima autoridad del organismo judicial expone sus argumentos sobre los cuales se basó para abrir la investigación contra Estados Unidos.
Recibí noticias de que la Cámara de Apelaciones de la Corte Penal Internacional autorizó una investigación sobre las actividades de los talibanes y el personal estadounidense y afgano allí. Es una acción realmente impresionante por parte de una institución política que se hace pasar por un cuerpo legal. Es aún más imprudente que este fallo llegue pocos días después de que Estados Unidos firmó un histórico acuerdo de paz en Afganistán, la mejor oportunidad para la paz en una generación. Lo reiteraré una vez más, Estados Unidos no es parte de la Corte Penal Internacional. Tomaremos todas las medidas necesarias para proteger a nuestros ciudadanos de este renegado ilegal llamado tribunal. Esta es otra muestra de lo que sucede cuando los organismos multilaterales carecen de supervisión y liderazgo responsable.
Are not responsible, and they are a vehicle for the political vengeance. The government of the United States has humanitarian display of over 25 countries in the world. These assistance, along with the great amounts of money donated by the private sector and religious sectors, show the huge generosity of the American people.
El fiscal está autorizado a abrir una nueva investigación.
There is an authorization to open a new investigation about the crimes committed in Afghanistan from the 1st of May of 2003 and other crimes that have some type of a connection to the Afghanistan crisis. And from the July 1st, there is this problem. The Chamber of Appeals says that there is information about war crimes due to violations of Article 3, like to the Geneva Convention, torture, cruel treatment, treatment against integrity, and other ways of sexual violence. This was part of an action that was coordinated. Let's locate this place, Afghanistan, an X-ray of an invasion. Afghanistan is a country that is in the midst of the southeastern continent between India and the Middle East, with a surface of 600,000 square kilometers. And it has a border with Turkmenistan and with Pakistan, to the east with Iran, and to the west with China, with which they communicate through the Wuhan corridor. Their position has made it a strategic place because it's always been a place for fighting. Regardless of its mountainous relief, Afghanistan is the point of a place. The situation is complex. Ever since the military intervention of the U.S. that began in 2009, the government that is elected by the parliament and through popular election, it's still very unstable. In terms of human rights, apart from the corruption and poverty, Afghanistan is considered the most dangerous country in the region. If you bear in mind sexual violence, domestic violence, discrimination, Afghanistan is extremely poor, with a high dependency on agriculture. 90% of the population works in the agricultural sector. It has huge gas resources that is being exploited by American companies. All of the basic elements to to make opium, it makes them the first illegal exporter in the world, according to the United Nations Office Against the Drugs. Although the mineral richness has not been extracted, Afghanistan has emeralds, chrome, zinc, uranium, gold, beryllium, lapis lazuli, and hydrocarbons. Just in the Laundering, there are 22 fields where apparently there are 2,000 barrels of oil. And there is a very low development due to the war and because there is a lack of a central government and the fragmentation of the society in tribal groups. The territory is mined with U.S. soldiers. According to official numbers, there are 14,000 troops and at least 200 bases, including bases and combat zones. This military presence is a way that United States can have a close surveillance to their anti-imperialist countries like China, Russia. Let's indicate a little bit more with this. After apparently 19 years since the United States invaded Afghanistan territory, United States has approved a peace process with the Taliban that would withdraw the troops from the U.S. There was a prevail of a reduction of the U.S. troops from the 2,000 and 14,000 troops to 8,600 in no more time than 135 days after the signing of this agreement. This would be before the next 14 months. The Taliban offered in exchange that the territory that they use will not be used as terrorist groups, as an Islamic group. And they were going to liberate 100 prisoners if Kabul liberates 5 of their militia. The agreement also opens open to direct negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghans for the future of this country. In 2019, both parties were about to have the same agreement. However, United States withdrew from the agreement with saying that the Taliban had killed a soldier. There have been at least 10 rounds of dialogues trying to reach a consensus, trying to put an end in the longest war in which the United States has had a part in. Apparently, what Trump is looking for is a triumph in foreign policies with the upcoming elections. Let's begin with checking our digital websites. United States says that it's unsensible the decision of the International Criminal Court to investigate the war in Afghanistan. This says that there is a reasonable base that members of the CIA committed the same crimes in Afghanistan and in other countries like Romania and Poland. These countries of Europe, except the criminal court, have had secret offices of CIA, and this is why they're under scrutiny of the International Criminal Court. In their speech in 2018, the President Trump said that he rejected the legitimacy of the court because he considered that it's going beyond its jurisdiction and vulnerates the sovereignty of his country. This is very ironic that it's the U.S. government that speaks of that others go beyond their jurisdiction and that go over the sovereignty of a country. The United States has never been a member of the International Criminal Court that was founded in 1998. And following with the context, let's remind what Hispan TV published on March 4th. United States launches an offensive against Taliban, although they signed an agreement. They did this after, and the question is, why did they sign the agreement? The Colonel Sonny Leggett, who's the spokesperson, said that its country has launched an attack in Kalmand Leggett has said that the bombarding of the U.S. was a defensive attack after the Taliban actively attacked a control point of the security forces of Afghanistan. The chief commander, General Mark Milley, clarified that Washington will not cease immediately their attacks at Afghanistan after the agreement with the Taliban, with just highlighting the inefficiency of this agreement. A Foreign Policy magazine recently affirmed that the United States has a terrible failure of 20 years in Afghanistan that had costed more than $1 billion and killed millions of Afghans and thousands of American soldiers without finding a stable solution for the country after having the Taliban ousted from the power. Now, so there is more clarity of the interference of the United States of the war in Afghanistan. I suggest that you read an article calling 6 Revelations about the role of Afghanistan that has been written by Carlos H. de Frutos, and it's been published in El Diario of Spain. It says 18 years and 3 administrations after, a publication of the New York Post has revealed this campaign of lies that for all these years the United States have said about the intervention of the U.S. in Afghanistan after the September 11 attacks. The question are, who are the enemies? And apparently there has been no answers if the enemy is Al-Qaeda, Pakistan, the Islamic State, or the CIA people. It is not clear who are the bad people. This is what Donald Rumsfeld said in one of the memorandums written by the Security Secretary between 2001 and 2005. Another paragraph speaks about the Asian country has become the major producer of drugs, although the $9 billion that they invested in eradicating this cultivation. And Afghanistan is one of the main producers of opium in the world. According to this investigation, the Washington Post says that Donald Rumsfeld said that nobody was in charge of the strategy of eradication of opium. Another paragraph speaks about the failure of the reconstruction, says that ever since 2001, they have spent over $133 billion in the reconstruction of Afghanistan. This is even higher than the one they did in the Marshall Program after World War II. However, there is a failure, a total failure of this program since the beginning. And more of this, it says the investigation determined that Karzai had received more than 1 million illegal votes in the 2005 election, a fourth of all of the votes, regardless of the fact that the Obama authority said that this was unacceptable. The government negotiated an agreement by why Karzai was declared the winner after agreeing to share some parts of power with its major opponent. There's another one that says by sharing contracts, CIA was able to get loyalty and information and of many authorities. Although the numbers are still secret, the documents reveal that the payments were discussed at the highest levels of the U.S. government. There's much more in this article that I suggest you read in profound. These are 6 roles of Afghanistan. This is in Vanguard. Let's go to our first pause, and when we're back, we'll keep on investigating about this topic. But I also invite you to participate with us in the question of the day, which says, the International Criminal Court authorized to investigate United States for having committed war crimes in Afghanistan. The White House is offended, will this investigation have a good end? How much is at play? Participate with us. Give us your opinion. We'll be right back. Let's tell more about our critical moves. We're back. The United States began the invasion to Afghanistan, 18 years of occupation, and the results have been disastrous. Let's recall the highlights of this operation. 18 years ago, United States invaded Afghanistan with the pretext that the Taliban government was giving a harbor to Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, who the White House made responsible of the September 11 attacks. In this operation, in which the United States used a very particular interpretation of Article 51 of the UN Charter, regarding the legitimate defense, there was a coalition that was made by UK, France, Spain, Italy, and the United States. This operation was called Enduring Liberty, and what they were trying to do is find bin Laden and liberate the Afghan people. The objectives were to allow the government of Afghanistan to provide security and develop security forces of their own, according to data of the self-defense government of the United States. In 18 years, there has been over $700 billion of expenditures, and thousands of U.S. coalition have participated, of which 2,000 are American. The consequences of the war were hundreds of dead people, and there is no strict numbers. Over 150,000 civilians have died. However, United Nations says that it was only 32,000. But the suffering of the Afghan people must be added to the displacement, with numbers that go over 2 million civilians that have had to leave their place of residence as a consequence of this conflict. 18 years later, there is also the assassination of bin Laden, whose body there has never been evidence. And while in the Asian country there is an infrastructure that is devastated, a political crisis that is still pending, and the excuse of everybody of the fight against terrorism. And now, in all of the context we will use to begin our analysis. For that, we have from Santiago de Chile, Pablo Nofre, who's a writer, master of international relationship, and an expert in the Middle East. And from San Sebastián, we have Juan Carlos Ejido. He's an investigator. I want to thank you both for being with us. Dr. Ejido, we see that everything seems to point out that the United States is going to be the accused this time because of doing some crimes in Afghanistan. Do you think we'll live this moment, or this is just a smoke curtain? Well, hello to everybody in Telesur and to everybody in Caracas. There is an interesting precedent because the International Penal Code condemned the Reagan administration for putting ports in Nicaragua in the 80s. Now, Pompeo is trying to threaten the International Criminal Code, and let's see if there's a lawsuit or not. In any case, the Tribunal of History is condemning United States not only for its crime in these 18 years of Afghanistan, but for all of the crimes that they have committed against this Asian country, beginning by a cyclone operation in the 80s. That's where the virus of the jihad terrorism, this Operation Cyclone that was in the 80s, and they continued up until today. This is 2020. They still commit crimes against the Afghan people. I think it's there is a really necessary, a huge tribunal needed, so they can judge the awful crimes that have been committed by the U.S. Now let's go to Pablo Nofre. Pablo, this opening of the International Criminal Code is contradictory to many, because some months ago there was a discussion about investigating United States for having committed war crimes in Afghanistan, and at that moment The Hague said that there was no place for this. Why is there now? Hello, Ray. Hello to you and to the colleague that is also invited. Well, in fact, what you're saying is correct. The International Criminal Code, the court, through Fatou Bensouda, presented in 2017, and it was rejected in 2018. The possibility of investigating the United States due to all of the threats and blackmail that the United States did against the International Criminal Court. So there was some discussions within the criminal court to see if they were going to give in to the blackmail or they were going to judge the United States. Some months have had to pass, and after the opinion of Piotr Chodmatsky, who is a judge, and he declared the International Criminal Code is authorized to investigate the crimes in Afghanistan, and the International Criminal Court should go by this mandate, and that is why today they are working for the International Criminal Court based on the fact that Afghanistan is member of the Rome Statute. They authorize the International Criminal Court have jurisdiction on these investigations. Although the United States is not a member, Afghanistan is, just like Palestine, another state that has requested investigation about war crimes. So there is a change of positions in a topic that is undisputable: the law, the Statute of Rome, and some of the ethics and morale legality that the International Criminal Court must show to the international community. Above all, in front of a country that thinks that it is lawless, just like the United States. So I think it is correct that the International Criminal Court change their decision of 2018, and that they start to investigate the alleged war crimes, and that the history have shown that they are war crimes, crimes against humanity, that are not only against Afghanistan, but all of the countries that have been submitted to invasion of the United States. In the last point, I would like to expand a little bit about this topic. We were seeing that what was published as part of the Afghan papers and the revelations of the New York Post, of the New York Times. We have also analyzed the Julian Assange topic here in our program before, and he was the one who made some revelations about the participation in the United States in Afghanistan. So I ask you, as a connoisseur of this region of the world, is there today enough elements to sit United States at the seat of the accused? Totally. Not only because of the invasion like Afghanistan ever since 2001 to the date, but to the amount of debt, at least 100,000. For all of the elements that speak of illegal exercise of the force, illegal use of the force on an invaded country. And this is not only death and assassination, destruction of infrastructure, but also the internal displacement and millions of refugees of Afghan people. 2 million of Afghan refugees live in their neighboring countries. There is also some statements of abuse against some prisoners. For example, some have been sent to Guantanamo. So there are elements that undoubtedly that in an investigation that the International Court must carry out, because they do have jurisdiction on the United States, because Afghanistan, as well as other countries, are members of the Statute of Rome, and this allows the International Criminal Court to investigate the crimes in their territory. Afghanistan has been calling out this for years, and this has created destruction of infrastructure, assassination, tortures. It's not only the crimes against the life of the Afghan people, it's also the destruction of a society. They made a fragmented government, and they destroyed the thread of the society, and they don't allow that people live there peacefully. All of the elements that we see about Afghanistan show that the United States is responsible. And you were mentioning the opium. United States is one of maybe the most responsible country of the cultivation of opium, because before United States arrived to Afghanistan, there were less acres of farming opium. And there were routes that are now managed by the Taliban. But of course, they have the complicity of the United States that has benefited enormously of this illegal product, and that is destroying the other social thread of other societies. So there are many elements to condemn, and first to investigate and then condemn the United States. Let's see if it's possible. Pablo, please stay with us until the end. Dr. Ejido, this must be analyzed in the context of the peace agreement between the United States and the Afghan government and the Taliban. Let me repeat the question. This news arises in the recent agreement between the United States, the Afghan government, and the Taliban. This agreement is a bit shaky because 5 days later it has been signed. United States bombards a Taliban group because they said that Taliban was the one who began to irrespect this agreement. So speaking of this agreement, what is the future it may have? Do you think that it has any future at all? Well, allow me to answer that no, it has no future because the United States under the Trump administration has showed that you cannot believe in their word. North Korea, the agreement with the comprehensive agreement, the agreement with the Russian Federation. So all of the agreements of the international agreements, they have not been fulfilled. They are signed with the hand and erased with the elbow. So in this case, under the argument that that the ceasefire has not been respected, there is always going to be an argument to disrespect the agreements they sign. And they just sign it because of internal interest. But in this case, the elections of the United States. Donald Trump is interested in showing a medal and saying, hey, I was able to make peace in the Middle East. But when you see a little bit deeper, you see that United States signs an agreement, and then they leave aside the real owners of the territory, adding to which Afghanistan have two presidents that have sworn in. So the fragmentation of Afghanistan that I have mentioned in the previous answer is now expressed with two presidents that are not able to negotiate a peace with the insurgent groups, and they have the United States as an occupying country. They violate the ceasefire, and the situation is going to continue. And this has the need of withdrawing all of the international forces that are in Afghanistan, beginning by the United States. So there is no agreement with the invader that has more they want to go beyond just Afghanistan, which is Pakistan. There are topics about the Silk Route. There are other geopolitical topics by which the United States will never want to sign. While this doesn't happen, the United States will keep on sticking their hands in Afghanistan. Thank you very much, Pablo. Let's close to this analysis right now. I want to invite Dr. Ejido to reflect in this aspect. This investigation that the International Criminal Court has just approved against the United States, how do you think there could be an incident, both geopolitical and geostrategically? Well, what is the incident of the resolution of the International Criminal Court? Well, let's not forget that the United States is in the midst of an electoral process, and they do want to get there is this war, this commercial war with China, and the coronavirus in the middle. So the United States has several fronts. And now we have this topic of the alleged accusations of war crimes in Afghanistan. How do you think geopolitically this could reconfigure the map? Well, I think in terms of the internal policy of the United States, the people who like Trump really don't care the war crimes that the U.S. forces in any country, that they dominate in a colonial way. In terms of the withdrawal of the U.S. troops, it is important to see that there is a calendar. It's important to see if they're going to go through with the withdrawal, because it's very juicy for the U.S. militaries and for their allies to have an important control in Afghanistan, because this allows them to destabilize the frontier with Iran from the city of Herat, and this allows them to destabilize and control the Muslim republics of Central Asia that are linked to the Russian Federation. And it also allows it to destabilize the western frontier of China. This is the Xinjiang frontier. This is a place from which there is a Islamic fascist terrorists that are combating some that are in Syria, but that the final destination is to destabilize from Afghanistan China. That's what they're seeking. And according to the United States, they are the strategic enemy of the United States. So it is still to be seen, number one, if they go forward with the protest against the war crimes and war against humanity of the U.S. troops. This would be the honor of the International Criminal Court of The Hague that this may happen. But seeing what Trump does, it would not surprise me that they sanction the judges of these tribunals. Because with what Trump does, everything is possible. And then if that prospers, it's important to see all of the tricks that the US has and their mainstream media to shut down and silence all of this never-ending chain of all of these elements that should be investigated and committed by their allies of NATO under U.S. direction. So that would be the situation. Thank you very much, Dr. Ejido. Let's not forget that yesterday there is some information published by Telesur in March 15 of 2019 that says Secretary of State Michael Pompeo had announced sanctions against authorities of international criminal courts that investigate human rights violations in Afghanistan. So this would be the re-edition of that investigation. Pablo said it very well. This investigation did not go forward, but ever since the United States had announced sanctions against the magistrates of the International Criminal Court. So let's see what the United States will do. Thank you very much, Dr. Ejido and Dr. Pablo. Let's go to a second pause, but before, let me invite you to participate in our critical move question. The Criminal International Court has authorized to investigate the United States for having committed war crimes in Afghanistan. The United States is offended and also offends. Will this investigation have a good end? What's at play? Please participate with us. We'll be right back. This recent decision of the International Criminal Court in April of last year, back then there was a rejected this investigation of war crimes on the United States by considering that this would not go in interest of the justice itself. The recent investigation that was authorized by the International Criminal Court against the United States will see from 2003, when the armed forces were able to commit these crimes, war crimes, and crimes against humanity in Afghanistan in 2003. Afghanistan was a member of the Statute of Rome, but United States has not ratified it, and ever since they are carrying out a campaign against the criminal court. The war crimes of the United States against civilians in this country go long back, according to WikiLeaks in 2010, with the Diary of War of Afghanistan. This was a collection of 90,000 reports where there was reports of civil assassination by a coalition led by the United States. This happened at a point where Barack Obama had added to 30,000 military forces in Afghanistan to strengthen the war. The experts say that imprisoning Julian Assange have to do with some type of a vengeance or a price that he must pay for exposing how the United States has exposed the wars throughout the world. These were cables of U.S., and there is 700,000 that were given to Assange by Bradley Manning, today Chelsea Manning, that consequently has suffered the price of the justice. Let's not forget that this was a huge scandal, seeing how there was an assassination of 2 reporters on behalf of United States helicopters. All of this comes out once that the criminal Court has authorized the investigation for having committed crimes against humanity. But there is a part that we have not analyzed yet. And this is why I've invited Jesus David Rojas. He's an expert in international law. He's the director of the National Movement of Patriot Lawyers of Venezuela. Thank you very much. Thank you for your invitation. Doctor, what are the phases of this type of investigations? After the accusation, there is an internal investigation, and the prosecutors asks for an authorization, and they either authorize or not this this investigation, and this can be appealed in the appeal court, and they could modify it. And there are still nobody indicted. So the International Court judges genocide, wars against humanity, and war crimes. And there are two of the ones that are being judged: crimes against humanity and war crimes. These are the crimes that the United Nations consider are the most heinous against the human condition. Although there are 4, each one is subdivided in different types. However, the International Criminal Court has the jurisdiction to judge people and not states. So it is true, the U.S. will be investigated, but at the end, the prosecutor will have to pinpoint the names of generals, ministers, even the former President Barack Obama or President Trump. And what I think is much more interesting is that many evidence that was liberated by WikiLeaks in the international war can be used against the United States. For example, the ones that there was the images of a helicopter that was shooting against reporters, and this is the elimination of a civilian. And according to the Geneva Convention, in an armed combat, the civilians should be protected, and this was not the case. A U.S. helicopter was killing 2 reporters, and according to the WikiLeaks video, you could hear the commands of shooting or not, and the soldier said to who he was directing. He said, "Look, there are children in the truck." And the person who commanded the operation said, "Nobody asked them to take children to the place, so shoot." And regardless of the fact that the United States accepts or not this sentencing, it is important to show to the world this reality. But in this case, it will have names and last names. So the fact of researching all of this was conduct that the U.S. people will find themselves, like what happened in Vietnam. And there are war veterans that have revealed, that have created revolt because they don't want to go back to any war. But like in any country, the U.S. people are patriots, and that's fine. But when you see that your country is not obeying by the rules of law, you react. What am I doing? And what is why is my son coming back from war so affected? There have been suicides. Some people have been drug addicts when they come back. And since the United States command NATO troops, this may affect other forces of other countries. So tell us, what is an impact beyond the United States that an investigation such as this one may have? You're mentioning NATO. And NATO did participate with the ousting of Muammar Gaddafi and the assassination. So yes, the International Criminal Court will step in and put order in this investigation. Let's not forget that in Libya, there was an order of the International Criminal Court, and somebody interpreted this order, and they disappeared Libya. It's not only that United Nations gave an order, and you must limit yourself to the order and not go beyond it. And that's what NATO has done in Afghanistan. And that's what they did in Libya. And then they did the same thing in Iraq, although it was not authorized. And in other cases, what might be happening? In Colombia, it's interesting to see where there are a lot of U.S. interference. And in Afghanistan, where they too have 18 years controlling the situation, they are the main producers of drugs in the world. So this leads us to believe, and the court could also think so, that the United States is promoting drug trafficking all around the world. Because let's not forget, they are the main producers and the main consumers. And it's not the same thing that experts say it, then a international criminal court says it. So this would also have money laundering, and what is the consequences of the opium consumption in Europe. All of these situations will be revealed after the investigation. Normally, the news media does roadkill on some of the investigations that are carried out. So I urge the people in the United States to follow closely these type of investigations so they won't be catch and kill. I think more than the condemnation, I think it's important to know that how United States operates. Speaking of journalists, what would happen with Julian Assange if United States is the culprit? Well, it's important if even Julian Assange's evidence are used. There is a way how the criminal court are not done. It's that the states judge themselves. So if United States in this process of revision should to revise their own procedures, but if these state secrets are crimes against humanity, you would have to see who would have to investigate it, because if United States does it on themselves, this would not be fair. In a certain way, I would like to say that this contributes, or this would become, this could be even revised if the United States has a say in it, just like what happened in Chelsea Manning. He was already condemned, but they could give him some indemnation because it's understood that when he revealed that it was the soldier that saw everything, and there was a conflict inside of him of what was ethical and what was being done, and when he revealed it, this is what happened with Watergate. In this case, there's a Watergate with President Trump and Obama. Thank you very much, Doctor, for having cleared up all of these doubts. Let's go to our conclusions. As you can see, there are many questions on the field. Will the United States accept being seated as the accused, or will he be able to stop this investigation, just like Trump has evaded the impeachment? What will be the consequences for the electoral process in the U.S., and where the war topic is among the main topics? Up until how far can The Hague prove that revelations like the one of WikiLeaks were true? What are the repercussions of this process and the Assange process, whose extradition will be decided in international tribunals? There is still to see where this river will end. This is all for today.